Now we have among us Dr. M. Rajeshwari, the head of the Department of Electronics and Telecommunication Engineering, BIT, in delivering a lecture on foundations of network security. Madam is the alumnus of BIT, and she has grown in her stature to take up the lead of the department as of now. And we are looking forward to you, madam, in setting the tone of this 6-day refresher program on advanced topics of network security. Over to you, madam, for the next.
Thank you, sir.
Your voice is very feeble.
Now am I audible, sir?
Yes, mass. To me, it's okay.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Good afternoon, participants. Good afternoon, participants, and we're talking about theoretical aspects of academic point, how we look at it. We saw from the point of the practical aspects from Ishwan sir. So what actually is happening and how they do it, and that is where the academicians are needed to take care of the technical point of view.
Please bear with us. We are trying to address some network issues.
Like the bank data, that we have the transaction information, the customer information which needs to be secured, the basic data, and as well as the trade information, the commercial company informations, the medical records, the insurance records, etc. They need to be secured. So we have to provide the security for that data, and that is why we need the security. So that is why we need to have the security. So, and also we need to provide the authentication and the access control for the data. And also we have to make sure that the sources are available, the resources are available as well. And now we know that there are vulnerabilities existing in the network. So it can be the financial institutions, banks, or the pharmaceutical companies, or the government organizations, the multinational companies, and for that matter, anyone on the network. And we think that the data what we are using is not of much importance, yes, but someone else sitting in between, for them, that data is a wealth. It's important to them. And they are going to use that data for some other purposes. So, and that is where we need to make sure that anyone on the network is secure. So, have to be made secure. And that is why the vulnerabilities are there. And that is why we need the network security. And now, I hope all of you are familiar with the networks protocol stack. So the basic computer networks, which we all would have learned it as a students, and some of you might have already taught them for your students in the computer networks curriculum. So we know that there are various layers in the protocol stacks, and what I'm going to discuss is how the attacks happen. So the other side in the morning, what we saw was from the other perspective, where the Ishwan sir was talking about how the crime happens and how it can be avoided. And that is where we need to enhance the skills of the students so that they will be the ones who will be providing the services to the practical people. So, and that is why we need to know that where the physical layer, and the third layer is the network layer, and then the transport and application layer. So we know that here the link layer, which has the address, the type of the addresses that we use in the internet, the link layer makes use of the MAC address. That's a hardware address. The network interface address, the NIC card address, what we call the MAC address. It's a 48-bit address that will be using it, or sometimes the 64-bit address, the MAC address, what we use in the network access layer. And this is the address which is associated with every computer. Every system will have an unique MAC address, the MAC ID. And knowing the IP address, will be looking for the MAC address, and multiple times the IP address, the MAC address changes and the IP address remains the same. IP address is the global address, which is a network address. So the IP address is either the 32-bit IPv4 address or 128-bit IPv6 address. And we know that in the IPv4, it was a dotted decimal address. And in IPv6, it is the hex colon address that we have it. And this IP address remains the same throughout. And now every host will have a unique IP address. And using this address, it's going to transmit the data. And now this IP address is not understood by the physical network. And that is where we have the MAC address. So the IP address will be broadcasted using the ARP, and that is where the vulnerability exists, and we'll come to that. So this IP address is at the network layer, and the other address that we have at the transport layer is the port address. So every application process is associated with an address. So like the HTTP 80, we have the various address, various port numbers which are being made, and then there are well-known ports. That are the ports which get the maximum number of hits. The more the number of hits they get, they'll be made as a well-known ports. Like we know that the FTP is 2021, Telnet is 23, and so on. We have the port addresses depending on the application process. And then we have on top of that the application layer, or the human interface, the user application or the human interface that we have it, which deals with the domain names. So the domain name will be given based on the one, it will be using the DNS, the conversion takes place to the domain name to the socket address. It has to be ported, and a socket is a combination of port address and the IP address. A socket will be opened up when we open a particular application process. When we make a request, a new socket will be created, and a session is created with a TCP. And we'll see that the how the sniffing attacks happen, and then the session hijacking happens with the transport layer sessions. Even with the three-way handshaking, how the problems are created and how the hackers try to get into the network. So now the routing and the translation of addresses, like I said, so when the data comes from the IP address. So now, for example, I'm at BIT Bangalore, and when I want to access an information, so when I use a browser, and using that browser application, I'm connecting to the internet. First thing it does is it goes to the DNS, the domain name system, converts it into the valid IP address and sends the valid IP address along with the aliases. And then we have to use that IP address, the IP address, and depending on the application port like HTTP or the 80, we have to open a socket, and that comes down to the network layer and then to the link layer, the host to link layer. And here the address resolution has to be done. So we have to find out the MAC address first to transmit the data. And now for that, the ARP protocol is used. that is the address resolution protocol. For the IPv4, it was the address resolution protocol that we have it. And then for the IPv6, we have the network discovery protocol that we have it. So it has been changed into the network discovery protocol in the IPv6. And then now when we have it in the network layer, the routing of the packets take place. And I think many of you are familiar with the various routing protocols that are used. And using those routing protocols, we'll be exchanging the routing tables for updating it. And for example, the border gateway protocol, which is used between the different networks from one gateway to another gateway. When the addresses have to be updated, the routing table information will be exchanged, and these are vulnerable. These BGP connections which are kept for a longer duration, so they are vulnerable ones. So that makes it, that introduces the vulnerability, and this is where the attacks also happen. Yeah. So now the various threats in the networking with respect to the confidentiality. So that is basically with a sniffing of the packets like the Wireshark, a sniffing tool, the hacker tries to monitor it. So in that case, it is the passive attack where the user is trying to get hold of the information, and it's going to monitor what is happening in the network. Like a session going on here will be monitored by someone who is sitting in between, and they'll be able to capture all the packets and keep on monitoring the data. And we'll see that one of the sessions, there are tools how to check it, the open source tools which are available. And the sniffers like the Wireshark, they provide the easy access. You just have to install it and you'll be able to see what exactly is the TCP header, IP header, and then the ARP header, and how exactly the data is being done. So the packet sniffing, they sniff the packet and they'll try to monitor the data. And again, another thing is the integrity of the data. That is, you lose the complete information itself. The actual data is not sent to the receiver at all. The sender sends it, and in between the hacker hijacks the session and the data will be diverted and the data doesn't reach the receiving. Another type of one is, and we are familiar with the availability and then the CIA triad that we are familiar with. And I'm trying to map the CIA triad with what exactly happened with the threats in the networking. So now the availability one, the users, they bombard with the ICMP packets, the ping packets, and that leads to the denial of service attacks. So the denial of service attacks, the genuine user doesn't get to use the network at all. So the actual server which is trying to connect, it will not be able to access the server at all. So that's one of the problems that we have with the networking. Yeah. So that's one of the problems that we have with the networks. And the common problems that we have is with respect to the address translation, the ARP poisoning attacks. So we'll be discussing more about the ARP poisoning attacks and the routing attacks. And now the security problems are mainly because the ARP is not authenticated. The address resolution protocol is not authenticated. And because of that, there will be ARP attacks, and then the malicious user tries to gain access into the data and also sneak inside that. And the actual user will not know what exactly is happening there at all. So initially they spoofs it and then they poisons it. We'll see that. And another problem is this network packets which are being sent by the untrusted hosts. You should not take the packets from the untrusted hosts which are coming. So that is another problem. And also the TCP, the three-way handshaking that is happening with the TCP. Even though we say that it is secure enough, we'll not be able to make out what exactly is happening. And the sequence numbers, which we say that start with a sequence number, and that will be incremented when it is sent by the other sender. And then when you send the reply back with a three-way handshaking, that the hackers will be monitoring, the man in the middle will be sitting and analyzing it, and they'll be able to generate their own sequence numbers. And then we have to provide security for that as well. And then the open accesses which we give it, they are mainly vulnerable to the denial of service attacks. And also the DNS is not authenticated, and that also leads to the DNS poisoning attacks. Yeah. So now coming to the address resolution protocol, we know that the address resolution protocol is used to translate the IP address to the MAC address. So because the device needs the Ethernet address to send the packets. So now every host will have a mapping of IP to the MAC addresses, and the ARP request will be sent by the user. And now with the IP address, it will send a broadcast request saying that to whom this IP address belongs to. So here you can see that the source MAC address is given, and its a target MAC address is not known. So the source with the IP address is making a request on the network asking for the target IP address to whom this IP address belongs to on a LAN. And now this broadcast message, when it is being sent, the actual target device will reply back with its MAC address. So you can see the change in the addresses. The source IP address is the sender's IP address here and its MAC address. So now the target IP address will be broadcasted to all the systems connected to that particular LAN. And initially the target MAC address is 0. And now when the reply comes from a particular user which has the target IP address, you can see the IP address. Now the source which is replying back has the IP address of the target which the sender was asking, and it has specified its MAC address. So its MAC address, and then it's replied back to the sender setting it as the target IP and the MAC address. And now coming to the attacks that can happen with the ERP, the ERP attacks. So a hacker tries to gain access into the important data. And now if everything was fine, the genuine user will reply back. On the other hand, if there is a malicious user who is sitting in between and trying to get hold of the data, and hacker, when a spoofing happens, a hacker will be sending the fake ERP packets. Fake ERP packets that will be linked to the attacker's MAC address, and then the IP address is same as the one which was requested by the sender. So sender is not aware of who is replying. So when the MAC address comes, the sender assumes that this is from the genuine user to whom that target IP address belongs to. So now the hacker, if they are able to successfully put that MAC address into the table, then they will try to do the poisoning. The ARP poisoning will be done. The hacker will try to meddle with the ARP table maintained by the sender and tries to manipulate the MAC addresses, and then the target of the hacker. So what the hacker is trying to do? So they try to send the data on the compromised network, and then that may also lead, after the successful attack, a hacker can hijack the network and sometimes take over the whole thing, and then make a get hold of that network and make the what do you call, the requests for the ransom, all that they try to do that. And sometimes they will not be they deny to provide the service, and sometimes they just sit as the man in the middle and threaten to threaten the confidentiality of the user. And the basic problem with the ARP that we have is that the connection. So the attacker has a easy access. The attacker gets a easy access when it is connected to the network or a switch or a hub, another additional connection. The malicious user sits there, and then the hacker may use their coding skills so that they can directly connect to the network, and they should be knowing how to write the ARP packets. So that can be accepted by the system and then stored on the system. And sometimes the hacker may use a tool like ARP spoof, and or send the inauthentic ARP data as well. And then another thing is then ARP reply, they are put in the cache. So the longer the ARP replies are put in the cache, the more dangerous they are, and the hacker will be able to attack the network. And now, how do we make sure that the attack is prevented? So the defenses that we can have against that is, one is the passive method. You keep on monitoring the ARP traffic and the mapping table, and if there is any doubt or anything which looks like fishy, then you can reset it and then restart that. And sometimes, like active one, you try to put some false ARP packets so that it helps identify the network vulnerabilities, so that you are just testing your network. So if there are any weak points in the network, that can be traced and you can set it right. So that is the active one. And another thing is you don't change your ARP table. You initially make up the ARP table with a set of MAC addresses and maintain that. Earlier days, this was being done. So maintaining the static ARP table. So, but as we went further, as the technology improved, we wanted the dynamic tables, because dynamically the systems can be changed, or they can be added and taken off from the network the ones, and that is why the dynamic one came. And one of the prevention ARP poisoning prevention thing that we can do is maintaining the static ARP table. So the static ARP table, when we have it, then we can make sure that no other person or no one else is trying to send the ARP replies. Another thing that we can do is using the DHCP certification. So make sure that only the authorized servers can be used for the conversion or the dynamic host configuration protocol when we have, and only with a certification that we can use it. Another thing that we can also have is use of a virtual private network. We can have the virtual one where we have the encrypted tunnel being used, and all the communication is encrypted. But it's a little bit costlier one, and depending on the data, how much security you want for the data. So every data can be encrypted and sent. And also you can have the monitor with the tools like ARP Watch. So the protection tools, there are various companies which provide the protection tools, and you can make use of those tools for protecting the network. So one of them is the ARP watch, so this will monitor the activity, and if there is any changes in the IP and the MAC addresses, it will check it, and also it checks the log every day and the timestamps to make to understand that whether the attack has happened or not, and the email will be sent if there are any updates happen, and for that the tools can be used. So this is at the link layer. At the MAC layer, the ERP spoofing or the poisoning, this leads to the attack. So this is one of them, that is the ERP poisoning. It's a cyber attack which is carried out with the ERP messages, and this is a vulnerable one because it's difficult to detect once it's already been put into the table, and again the either once the poisoning happens, the damage done will be very big with the ERP poisoning, spoofing, and the poisoning. And sometimes it is like complete network comes to a halt with this. So we have to be careful with this, the ERP poisoning and the ERP spoofing attacks. And the next one, coming to the IP, the network layer routing. So the IP routing packets, every router will maintain a routing table. And here you can see that from the host, it's coming to the service provider, and then to the gateway, and then to the destination, it is being sent. So the IP routing, which is the routing tables which will be maintained. So here we have the various algorithms that are being used, like one of them being the distance vector routing algorithm, which we normally use it for building the routing tables. So when you're building the routing tables, the exchange of the information will be going on between the neighbors. And one thing with the distance vector routing is it contains the information of all the hosts in the network, and their reach will be provided in that, and this updations occur periodically from time to time. The routing tables are updated, and these routing tables are exchanged. So the hackers will try to make use of that. So the hackers will be reading that information, and then they may try to put another routing table instead of the genuine routing table, which will be put into the network. And now this is one of the important things which can be taken care by making use of the IPsec. IP security, we need to have it. So here this will provide the security, the IP level security, or the IP sec has to be used for avoiding the security breaches using the IP packets. So now this IP security is it also assures that the received packet was actually transmitted by a genuine one, and not by someone else. So for that, we have the additional IP security header being attached, and then also the authentication header being added to that, to make sure that the packet sniffing doesn't happen. So for that, we have the ESP headers, authentication headers being used, and also the authentication algorithms that are being used. And it also takes care of the authentication, confidentiality, and also the key management once with the packet sniffing. So once the packet is being sniffed, and then the user is able to transmit or put the routing table into the network, and if that propagates, so what happens with the distance vector routing and all is we'll be forwarding those updated routing tables again and again. And once the falsified information comes and sits into the network, the damage done will be more. So these sniffing attacks, which they do with the sniffing tools like the Wireshark, those the sniffing attacks. So now this sniffing or the spoofing attacks. So now the sniffing is the what do you call, the monitoring or getting hold of the data. On the other hand, spoofing attacks are with a man in the middle, in which the attacker poses as another person and then they sit in between like here and then passes the intercepting the data which is passing between the targets and the network to gain the sensitive information. And you can have as a active sniffing or the passive sniffing. In the active sniffing, the attackers will take the packet data and then they'll be changing the addresses and then injecting the traffic into the network where they make the active sniffing. On the other hand, in the passive sniffing, they do not affect the communication, the direct communication, but they'll be able to get hold of the information. And now this sniffing attacks, first thing is don't use it on untrusted networks. So don't use the untrusted network. So anything with to do with your sensitive data. And now here I'd like to tell you something about the attacks that have been happened so far. So if you are familiar with the security breaches that are happening in the day-to-day life, the common data that the hackers are looking for is the personal information of any individual. The personal information like their phone numbers, the bank account numbers, these are the ones which are being taken, and the companies which are what do you call, the breaches have happened are like the insurance companies where again it is the individual data which they'll try to gather and then misuse that data. And that is where this passive attacks are also very dangerous. And these breaches, even with all the security firewalls being put by the banks and all these ones, there are still some compromises made with the cost. Some of the companies, they invest less amount. They try to make it more economical, or they what do you call that? They assume that the breaches will not happen and the data is secure. So this is where you have to be careful when you're opening an account with a particular bank as well. So how good it is, or an insurance company when you're investing it. So you have to make sure the security aspect as well. The passive sniffing of the packets as well leads to the damages. A lot of damages have mainly happened with respect to the passive attacks. So the passive sniffing of the packets leads to that packets sniffing. So that is why we have to be careful when you're using you're sharing the data with the external third parties, and you have to make sure that it is the secured networks that we are using, and the company that you're investing or you're getting into has a good networking one. So make sure that there has a VPN, the virtual private networks. So that is another important thing with respect to the sniffing, the packet sniffing, and the prevention of that can be done with the IPsec and the transport layer security. So the IPsec will attach the additional headers, encrypt the data, make sure that the security parameters are taken into account, and then encapsulate the whole data within the header, or only the authentication information is put in, is encrypted and sent, or the whole data is encrypted. So those two aspects are taken with the IPsec. And in the transport layer security, the SSL, the secure socket layer, makes sure that the sequence numbers are changed. So that we'll see next. That is we know that at the transport layer. So what we were discussing was about the two layers, that is the data link layer and the network layer. So at the data link layer, we have the ARP spoofing and poisoning. And then at the network layer, the packet sniffing happens. And now at the transport layer, the third layer, the network layer, the transport layer, there are two protocols that we have in the transport layer, as you are all aware, the TCP and the UDP. So the transmission control protocol is a connection-oriented protocol. On the other hand, UDP is a connection-less protocol. So the connection-less protocol, it's faster, so we try to use it. And the UDP doesn't guarantee any flow control or the acknowledgement or authentication. No security for that. The UDP doesn't guarantee any of those things. And then the TCP. So TCP is a connection-oriented one. It makes sure that the data which is sent in the order will be received in the same order when the reassembly happens at the other end. And it has sequence numbers for every data that is being sent. And also it will acknowledge the packets which are sent, and the retransmissions will be done for the unacknowledged packets. So now here in the TCP, initially the connection establishment happens, and after that the data transfer takes place, and then there is a connection release as well taking place. So now the connection establishment, when we do it, we have the flags, that is the sequence numbers with the sync flag being set will be used. So the 32-bit sequence number is used. Now initially, when the connection establishment takes place, the sync flag will be set and a particular sequence number will be used. It will be initialized a particular sequence number, and then the sequence number initially when we use it, +1 will be used for the next ones. And now if the sync flag is clear and that sequence numbers will be used. And now the acknowledgement, when it comes, it will come as a sequence number which the receiver, the segment which the receiver is expecting. The data what the receiver is expecting, that sequence number will come, and then the acknowledgement for all the previous data will be sent by the receiver. So now here, the initially when we have the sync flag will be set, and with the sequence number X, it will be sent to the receiver. The server is in the listening mode. Here the server is in the listening mode. Now, whenever the client wants to communicate, the client will send a sync segment. The TCP segment will be sent, and when the reply comes back, along with another sequence number, the acknowledgement comes as X+1, indicating that we have received the segment with a sequence number X, and we are expecting the sequence number X+1. And now the acknowledgement flag is also set to 1, indicating that it is acknowledgement. Yes? Yeah, any doubts? Yeah? Yes? Okay. Now when the acknowledgement comes, till that the sender is waiting and then sends another acknowledgement. Again, you can see that the acknowledgement is indicating the what it is expecting. The sequence number was Y, and the acknowledgement comes as a Y+1. And this TCP handshake, the connection establishment handshake, when it takes place, the sequence number prediction will be done. So the users will try to identify the TCP session, and now the problem with this is the sequence prediction attack. So the handshake, when it is happening, the three-way handshake, the attacker who is sitting in between will try to create where the client and server are not able to exchange the data, and then tries to put its own data into the packet, which is acceptable to both the ends. So it's like posing as a real one. It sits in between and then sends the data. So the session hijacking, the TCP session hijacking. Now this hijacker who sits in between will create a state where the client and server will not have anything to do with each other, whereas the packets are acceptable at both the server and the client. And now the attacker gains the control into the session, and here the actual server, which is supposed to get from the genuine user, and the genuine user who is B here will be blocked, and then E gets hold of that, and the attacker will be communicating with the actual web server, and the A will not be able to identify that. It thinks that it's still communicating with the server, but the B will not be communicating in actuality, but the attacker has taken over that, and this is called as the TCP hijacking, TCP session hijacking, which normally happens. So now this session hijacking, when this happens, the hacker was waiting to put something into the network, the unencrypted data that it will be putting, and also the downloads, everything will be put into that. And now the IP spoofing is a method where the gain an access to the unauthorized access, and the intruder will be sending a message indicating as though it is coming from an authorized host. So the spoofing of with the session hijacking, the spoofing, IP spoofing happens, spoofing of the IP addresses, and then this is basically used as a preliminary check on the firewalls. And then it also carries out the man in the middle attacks, where the attacker tries to get the session ID and do the ARP spoofing. So you can see that now, once it gets into the TCP session hijacking, it can do the IP spoofing, and also it can do the ARP spoofing, and then that leads to the blind hijacking, where the complete source routing is disabled, and the hijacker uses the blind hijacking by injecting the malicious data into the TCP session. And it is called blind because it cannot see the response. So the hijacker will send the data or commands just guessing the responses of the client and the server. And that is why it is called as the blind hijacking, which is done. And also the UDP session hijacking. Okay, since we're discussing only with the TCP session hijacking, let me that. So the session hijacking, once the session hijacking happens, it will get into the IP as well as the man in the middle attack. And now for this, we need to protect the data or make it as the secure one. And also that the session hijacking leads to the denial of service attacks. So now this denial of service attacks is again effective with respect to very effective against the border gateway protocol. That is when the routing tables are exchanged, it gets into that and then tries sending the packets. So that is one thing. And then the different types of denial of service attacks that will be having is the killing of the process or crashing of the process or configuration. This is with respect to the local ones. It will exhaust the resources And when it is done at remote one, there will be bugs which will be introduced, and then the packet floods will be happening because of this DNS, DOS attacks. And then the sync flooding of the sync messages will fill up the memories, and this will be for every request, the victim will be putting out the multiple requests, and request gets rejected. The actual user will not get it. So now the actual client is trying to make the request with the syncs, and now the server keeps on putting that in the queue because there are a lot of requests which are generated by the attacker. The attacker will flood it with the packets, and that's what we're going to see next. The ICMP packets, it will flood with that, and the genuine user will not be able to get it because the server is filled up, and then the actual client gets blocked. And now coming to the another type of attack, which is the ICMP attack, that is the denial of service attack. And one of the common attack is the Smurf DOS attack, that is the denial of service attack. So the Smurf attack, Smurf, it's basically based on the cartoon character, that cartoon character which will take on the larger enemies or something like that. So based on that, it has been named. It's a denial of service attack which will be happening at the network layer, and this attack is similar to the ping attacks. The ICMP requests are broadcasted. So now you can see that the source is going to broadcast the ICMP request to the network, to the entire ones. So the ping request is similar to the ping request being sent to the broadcast network. And now the denial of the target, which is sitting here, will reply back. So now the hacker overloads the computers or the systems with the ICMP requests, and then the ICMP checks it whether the data is reaching the intended destination or not, and how to transmit the data. And also this ICMP attacks are very dangerous because it again based on the vulnerabilities of the ICMP. So Internet Control Messaging Protocol, and now one of the ways to prevent this Smurf DOS attack is to prevent the external packet to the broadcast address. Yeah, the ICMP protocol, the Internet Control Messaging protocol, there are two types. One is for the message replies that we use. Another one is with respect to the network management. We use the messages like error reporting or congestion control. For that purpose, at the network layer, it is used. On the other hand, for the particular client or the sender, the time to leave parameter problem, for that purpose, we make use of the ICMP protocol. And when those messages are being sent, we have to be very much careful and make sure that the packets coming from any of the external networks are not accepted. So now we are talking only about the theory, how, and then that is where all those industry experts come into picture, how exactly they work in today's environment and how the countermeasures are designed for that. So the Smurf is a type of the distributed denial of attack that we have, the DDoS one, at a distributed denial of attack. And then of course there will be orphan processes which will be there, the zombie ones, and that the zombie packet floods happen and it becomes difficult to trace them. So where exactly they are coming from. So that is another important thing with the denial of service attacks. And now we'll see what are the countermeasures that we can have it. So we have seen that in all the three layers, the attacks happen, and to prevent it, we have to take the measures. And however careful you are and taking the measures, the attackers or the hackers will be one step ahead, and they will be they'll be trying to find a way, one or the other way, to get into the network. One of the things with the is firewalls, putting a firewall. So a firewall is the one which screens or checks, make sure that the traffic which will be flowing into the network and outside the network is monitored, and make sure that the controlling is done, and only the authorized traffic defined with a set of security policies will be allowed to put into the network, and different types of firewalls can be used. Yeah. So now a firewall is like a bridge which we put it between the internal network and the external network. So now this firewall, how much we can have it, the trusted firewalls we can have it. So the basic firewall which we can have, like an institution like us has, is the packet filters. So what they do is they block certain websites. So they don't allow those things. The IP addresses are blocked in the firewalls. So the packet filtering router will set a set of rules for the IP packets and make sure that those particular, only those IP addresses will be given the access, or the packets will be sent out or allowed inside the network, and remaining packets are discarded from the both the ways, that is going out of the network and coming into the network, both will be blocked. So this filtering will be done based on the source and destination IP addresses and the interfaces, the intermediate interfaces that we are going to use it. So it will be decided. So the packet filters which we'll be using, it has a basic rules, specific rules which will be set as only drop the packets with the destination port of 23, that is for the telnet, or we can specify the type of the host. This particular host you can drop it, and then remaining you allow it. So normally what happens is, when you set up a network, everything will be allow. So the action taken or for all the packets, you give the access, and then you set it as the filtering one. When you don't trust the networks, which you don't trust it, you're going to specify that these particular networks are going to be blocked. So we are going to, it will be specified in the packet filters put in the firewalls. That is the basic one here. The firewall which is installed between the intranet and the internet. First type of firewall is the packet filter. So which basically tries to block the IP addresses, the packet filters. And then the other one is the application gateway. So in the application gateway, so basically the packets which are being sent out will be screened for their contents. So normally what happens is, when we look at the IP, it is the address. We're going to read only the IP address, and then based on that, the packets will be forwarded, or if it is the destination, which will be sent to the above layer. In the case of the application level gateway that is being used, it checks the contents of the, for example, your mail that you're going to send it, the contents of that will be checked, and based on the screening of the keywords that are specified for the filtering purpose, it will be sent or blocked. So that is the application level gateway that we have it. And the firewall, the corporate ones will be having multiple levels of firewalls being installed. So one here you can see that there are two levels of firewalls being installed. One internal, before being connected to the network, the intranet, what is coming, that will be checked and then given the access. And there is another one which is going into the internet. So here the internal one, there will be the access, the gateway one will not be checked. And here, when it is going out, the gateway content will be checked for their secure data applications. So that data will be checked, and then if there is anything related to that, that will be blocked and it will be discarded. It will not be sent at all. So that is one thing. And another countermeasures that we have is the intrusion detection. So monitoring the suspicious activity. So the anomaly, the activities, the intrusion ones. So the intrusion detection system tries to identify if someone is trying to enter the network, monitor the activities on the network, the suspicious IP address, and then basically the intruder, what we saw in the previous one, the hijackers and all, they try to get the IP addresses, gain the access into the network, and to avoid that, the intrusion detection systems are used. And this is one of the important things which will be discussed in our 3 or 4 sessions I have included, the intrusion detection. So they are going to perform the behavior of the the intruders will be analyzed, and then the only the users who qualify all that, who passes all those tests, will be given the access. Otherwise, the unauthorized users will not be given the access. So now the intrusion detection, how well it is, and that depends upon the parameters that will be collected. That is the collect the data about the users over a period of time, and then the tests are being applied to that, and then identify whether the behavior is legitimate or not. It will be done. So the intruder will be identified and then removed from the network before any damage is done. Sometimes the intrusion detection may fail because of the certain parameters, because there will be a rule-based ones. They specify the set of rules indicating that this conditions, if this happen, then it might be the breach. So that might be an intruder. So you try to block that. And on the other hand, it depends upon the collection of information. So normally what happens is when some of the breaches happen, the information is passed on to everyone, and then the intrusion detection system, something like the SNOT, they collect all that and they include it in the table. And every time when the detection is being done, so it will be checked for these additional parameters which are called as the audit records. So depending on what exactly was happening, based on the additional parameters, the measures have to be taken. So the various parameters will be checked for that, and then the intrusion detection system. This is one of the countermeasures that we'll be having, the intrusion signatures, and based on that, the frequency of the login, how long the intruder, the session ended abruptly, if the session ends, someone that it's a that is an anomaly, or the intruder, it might be an intruder, and the location from where it is being sent, and number of failure attempts, the password failure attempts, because if the intruder is trying, he'll not be knowing the actual password. They may try with that. And these are some of the things which will be used with the intrusion detection. Yeah. So now the internet, what we have it now. I had the other things, but now I'd like to have the question and answers from you as well, because I have been talking for almost an hour, and now I would like you people to ask me the questions like, am I able to tell you what exactly the network security threats, and were you able to understand those things? Yes.
Madam, I have unmuted all the participants. They should be able
Okay.
to talk now.
Okay. Yes. Any questions? So I just tried to bridge the gap between the academia and the industry, because we are familiar with these words, the networks, and then what are the types of attacks and breaches that will be happening, and taking it from here, the various experts will be discussing about the practical aspects and then the actual implementations, how they are being used in the practical environment. They'll all be explaining. So in that way, how or what are you expecting from this FDP? At least that much you can tell us. Yes. So if there are no questions, I'd like to conclude the session with the internet. What we use it, we are all using it every day, and without that, we cannot live. For each and every aspects of our life, the internet has become a part of it, and that is why the security of that is very important, because we normally think it's like a normal world, the digital world, but the digital world is not so simple as we see the humans or the manual operations what we used to do it earlier. Now everything comes easily, and that it is easy to exploit it as well. So every data what we share is vulnerable. It is what do you call? You have to think and put the data what you're going to put into the network. So you cannot just use the network carelessly. So the basic thing like your passwords, what you have it, you don't save it on your mobile and then keep changing your passwords. Those are simple things which we do it. And now this is being exploited by the hackers all around us. So, and in that case as well, we need to enhance the knowledge, we the academicians, to the students, as well as the latest technologies that can be used to overcome the security issues that we are encountering in our day-to-day life, and help the society as well in building a trusted networks around us. And of course, with the network security, the when compared to 2015, where the billions of security breaches were there, it has come down to millions. Still, it's a very big number with the millions of security breaches happening every day. In that direction, there are a lot of skill development required from us. And if we are able to impart some part of what we are going to learn from these next 5.5 days, it would be useful for the society as well. Yeah, thank you very much for your patient listening. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, ma'am, for setting
Thank
up
you,
the
sir.
tone for the days to come. I do have some announcements to be made for the participants. Please, participants, note that at the end of the every session, we are going to end the meeting so as to generate a report, because we need to submit the report to the ISTE. Your attendance will be marked on the basis of the logins. And the next session begins at 1:45 as per the schedule. It is on risk management in network security by Mr. Niranjan Bhate. I hope everyone will have a lunch by the time and rejoin. Thank you.